for it and working with students. So I have a background in higher education, so I worked in the college environment for just shy of 4 years before joining Paycom. So I have a true passion, obviously, for the developmental years that that college provides for students. Now I focus more on, obviously, the development and the success of students coming out of college and looking specifically to be in sales. So excited about what I do and excited about this competition with Whitewater. So today, I'm going to chat with you guys a little bit just about Paycom in general, the company as a whole, what we're about, what drives us forward, our culture, our values, as well as, chat a little bit about our role play for next week. And then I'll kind of wrap everything up with a little bit more about the opportunities that we offer for students, whether it be internship opportunities for students that are still have some time in school, as well as full-time opportunities nationwide. Just to kind of jump right into it and everything, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the presentation. Dan, if that's okay.
Yes, that's absolutely fine. Sorry, when you paused before, I didn't have my microphone on. We're all getting used to it.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're good. You're good. All right, let me bring up the presentation here.
While Ryan is pulling that up, I just wanted to say one thing too. We were talking to Ryan, and I had gotten this impression before. I know that when Paycom goes out and makes calls in front of customers, they are suited up. They are business professional. And for the sales competition, make sure that you are, at the very least, business casual, which means a button-down blouse or collared shirt, maybe a coat. You don't have to have a tie, but if you have a coat, that's nice, or a nice sweater. Please no sports attire with your name on it, or the university's name on it, or your hat on backwards, or anything like that. Be well groomed, shaved. I mean, realize we're all challenged right now with a lack of barbers out there and salons, but at least put yourself together. Okay, so go right ahead, Ryan, whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. Well, just to confirm, you guys can see my screen. It should say payroll and HR technology in a single app on your screen. Is that true?
No, we can't.
Okay, make sure here.
That's quite all right.
Okay, there we go. Should be
now it's
connecting as of now.
No, it just, okay, here we go. Yes.
Okay.
So you just got stuck with me for a second, but there we go.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, guys, just excited to tell you a little bit more about Paycom in general as a company. As a recruiter and somebody who's been doing this now for extended time, I like to bring a transparent as well as in-depth look at the company. And I would hope as students, you're evaluating multiple options and really trying to find a company that not only checks a lot of your boxes, but ultimately, you feel that you fit culturally as well. And that's where you're going to really find true enjoyment in work is identifying well with the company culture. So as far as the company goes, I like to start off every one of my presentations with our values. This is, again, what drives the company forward, what makes us who we are today, and what helps us be who we want to be tomorrow. So as you can see, winning, lead, grit, serve, learn, kind of the five founding pillars, values that Paycom identifies well with. I think that after 4 years of working with the company, I can see all five of these values each and every day, with people that I work with, whether that be new candidates I'm interviewing, current, sales staff, or even sales leadership, and even all the way up to our C-level. I consistently see Chad, our CEO, throughout the halls of our corporate headquarters, and he's somebody that's very, very dedicated to the lead component of this values. I feel like he leads the company in the right direction. So, and then ultimately fun included. I think that's one that goes without saying. I think that especially in sales, it's a very work hard, play hard culture position, not just at Paycom, but any sales job is going to be challenging. But again, where that fun comes into play is where you're identifying well with the culture of the company. And seeing the success and enjoying about what you do is really where I think a lot of the fun comes to it. So,
Ryan, can I
who we
ask you
are?
just a quick question? I hear grit from
Yes, of course.
a couple other employees as well. And could you just,
Mhm.
for these students, just define a little bit what does grit mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my opinion, grit is tied to more than just, I guess, the true definition of grit. I think it's more about mental toughness, competitive drive, goals, and a lot of things that drive people to be successful. Again, with sales, it's a challenging path. If anybody says it's not, then they're probably not being fully transparent with you. Sales does provide a lot of benefits, but also with those benefits come a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. And at the end of the day, the grit that you have and that mental toughness to continue to push forward is what tends to separate people that see a lot of success and people that merely maybe settle to the average. And if there's one thing I'll tell you about Paycom is that it's not an average company. The company was only founded over 20 years ago. 22 years ago this year, and since that time has grown to a company that is publicly traded as well as consistently growing more and more into the market. So grit, we exemplify grit each and every day at Paycom, and not just the sales staff, but every person that works at Paycom exemplifies that grit in some form or fashion. And I think that's a culture thing again that I identify well with, is that everyone comes to work to do the best they can and to get the job done. And when they go home at night, they know they kind of left it all on the table. And I think that's how grit is really exemplified at Paycom specifically. So I hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you. No, that's good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, back to kind of the slide here, about who we are. Obviously, if you're unfamiliar with Paycom, a lot of people obviously I think know who we are in general, mainly because of payroll. I think that's an easy thing to know about us. Obviously, Paycom, it's pretty easy to understand that. But we're more than just that. We're obviously a technology company specializing in human capital management. For us, human capital management is more than just payroll. It's everything within that life cycle of an employee. So how people are recruited through talent acquisition, how people are managed as an employee. Payroll obviously is an important component of being an employee. You obviously want to be able to get paid and provide a life for yourself or your family. The HR management and time and labor management components as well help keep employees satisfied as well as growing. Whether it be employee management, learning and development, long-term success, promotions. Paycom offers more than just a way for people to track their payroll and their benefits in an app. So it's much more immersive than strictly just payroll, and that's one of those things I really try to highlight initially that people maybe not realize if they haven't spent a lot of time with us. So the 5 main components of our company. This is a breakdown of all the solutions we offer. So you can see just visibly that there's more to Paycom than, again, just the payroll. And even we look on the pay side, there's a lot more than just clocking the time and getting paid. So it's much more immersive, and there's a lot of other components that most people don't really realize are taking place, behind the scenes. And I tend to joke with students that as you're young, HR is merely like, hey, did I get my paycheck? Yes. Okay, we're good. As you get older, you realize that HR becomes much more of a supportive and in-depth component of your time as an employee at whatever company you're working at. So obviously, they're going to make sure that you're paid on time, but there's much more to HR, again, than strictly just coming to work, showing up, and getting paid. A look at our growth. I kind of highlighted this a little bit already. As you can see, in 1998, the company was founded by just 3 individuals. And through, those first few years, the company was still small and growing. The company was founded in Oklahoma City, which is not, I would say, a tech hub for most people to initially think of. But as you can see over the past 20 years, the company has grown to, over 3,700 employees and is consistently still growing. We currently sit at 50 sales offices across the U.S., including 2 corporate offices, one in Oklahoma City, which is our initial corporate headquarters, And then currently we have a new location being built up in our Dallas area, in the Dallas area. So an exciting time to be at Paycom. You know, it's a fast growing company, and I really don't see that growth stopping anytime soon. So, and here's kind of a somewhat of a visual image on, you know, our locations. So if you know, students are looking to get out of the cold and looking to, you know, get into a little bit more warmer weather, we have plenty of offices in the southeast, the south, and the west part of the country where there's a little bit more sunshine and a little less snow. We tend to open anywhere from 1 to 3 new offices a year. Obviously, with everything going on right now, that may look a little bit different this year, but after sitting in on an earnings call recently, I know the company is doing well considering the circumstances. So again, kind of an exciting time to be here. So
And if I can interject,
kind of wanted to.
if I can interject,
Yeah, go ahead.
as far as the offices go, I notice you have really 3, you know, very close by, 4 close by in the Midwest here. There's one in Milwaukee, which is a fairly new office. There's one in Chicago area, or is it 2 in Chicago?
There's 2 in Chicago. So we have one in downtown in the Loop, and then we also have another one in Naperville. So right out on right outside the city.
Okay, great, because we have an awful lot of students from Illinois. And then there's offices up in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And then there's, I think, is that Indianapolis?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, a lot of offices I would say in the Midwest and the East Coast. You know, obviously when you start heading west, Minnesota, you know, I think you know, the cities are a little bit more rural, and since our client base is businesses, you know, our offices are located in some of the larger cities across the U.S. So in the Midwest, a lot of opportunity, you know, starting in St. Louis, Kansas City, 2 offices in Chicago, Indianapolis, Detroit, you know, Minneapolis, you know, and then as you continue to head east, obviously in the Northeast, you know, you get into some really you know, concentrated areas with large cities that, you know, provide a lot of business opportunity for Paycom. So I think that's why you tend to see a little bit more sales concentration there compared to the West Coast. Obviously, we have a lot of representation in California, you know, but, you know, outside of Portland and Seattle, really that's about the level of large cities that are in those areas. So that's typically how the offices are structured. Again, we will continue to expand into newer markets. There are still cities that we are not in, that I will, you know, I can, you know, assume we will, you know, at some point, you know, open an office there, but that'll, you know, not sure when that'll happen.
Okay. All right, great. So there's a lot of opportunities. So go ahead.
Absolutely. You know, so as far as, you know, who do we hire, you know, and not so much specifically about opportunities, but this is the type of profile that Paycom in general is looking for. You know, obviously we're looking for somebody who identifies as a young professional. And one of the key pieces of advice I give students is that at some point in college, you will start identifying yourself as a young professional versus college student. And we want, you know, individuals who identify themselves as a young professional. And obviously being in college, that is important. And something that we do require is that degree. But we want somebody who obviously takes, you know, their goals seriously, sees himself moving in a professional and, you know, positive direction, rather than identifying themselves well with, you know, a younger crowd and so on and so forth. So we look for, you know, students who take their grades very seriously. We do require, obviously, that bachelor's degree for our full-time rules. For our internship opportunities, that's not necessarily the case. You know, obviously, they have to be in school. But at the end of the day, you know, the college experience is something that we want you to be able to tell us more about as we're, you know, chatting with you, speaking with you about potential opportunities. So the big thing that I think we really look for at this time right now is leaders and lifelong learners. You know, we're looking for people who take their growth and development, you know, seriously. So what are they doing to help themselves get better? Are they reading any books? Are they listening to podcasts, business journals, anything that they feel like sets them up for success? A lot of students that we work with are leaders on campus. So whether that's student government, you know, business fraternities, social fraternities, I mean, student athletes, I mean, people that take the initiative to put themselves in a leadership role is something that tends to translate well to what we're doing. And that pursuit of excellence, which for me is a pursuit of accomplishing goals. What are they doing? Where do they see themselves in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Those are conversations that I tend to ask with students, and finding out what is going to be the best kind of path for them. As a talent acquisition advisor, I'm ultimately looking for the right fit, and quality versus any form of quantity. I want to make sure that I'm putting the right person in the job to begin with, rather than throwing a lot of people into the position and hoping they work out. So that's kind of a general background on who we look for. As far as before I get in kind of the specifics of the job and everything, I didn't know, Dan, if you guys had any additional questions for me that I could highlight. I wanted to make sure I covered the positions, but just kind of take this as a pause step.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Okay, absolutely. Well, the first job and the job that really drives our growth is our outside sales executive. This is a full-time role. We do hire students right out of college into this position. It provides a lot of amazing opportunities with really uncapped growth. So we provide a 10-week training program that's nationally recognized. It's high-level training, but ultimately the goal is to get you ramped up, excited about what we're doing, and knowledgeable at the same time. And then after that 10 weeks, you're out in the field and really hitting the ground running in the territory. You'll be working with key executives and really learning how to understand how their business is operating and how it's working at a high level. As a sales executive, and more of a consultant, your job is to figure out the problems that these companies provide, and you're there to solve those problems with Paycom solutions. It is a territory manager position, so you do spend a good amount of time out in the field meeting with those individuals, face to face. We also offer an uncapped commission package with a really competitive base, as well as incentives for high performers. This position in general is a position that is continuously evolving, and I think that as the current situation it happens around us, our sales executives are still able to show the value that we can create within their company. So even though everything is going on right now, the ability and what we offer in our cloud-based service is still creating that value, even when companies are shut down, struggling even, and looking for ways to kind of overcome the obstacles that the COVID-19 situation has provided. So it's really a great opportunity that can be not only a job right out of college, but ultimately a career path. I mean, it's not a job that we tend to see people come in and leave in a year. It's a position that people come in and have aspirations of management and leading their own teams and beyond. So really a great opportunity nationally. So it really doesn't matter if you're looking to get into any one of our 50 offices. Every office we have is structured identically. So
great. Just a quick question. I've been told that your turnover is a lot less than some of your competitors.
Yes.
And I can see that it's a pretty good starting salary. Do you mind if I ask just roughly? And I know you always have to be careful when you're quoting incomes for salespeople because so much is dependent upon their commission. But what would you say roughly is an average first year person, and where could somebody expect to be 3-5 years down the road in income if they were good, or a range, anything like that?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, starting out the first year, you can, if you're performing, you can expect to hit 6 figures your first year. Wow. As you see success within the role, over time, that number really only goes up. So once, if you're 6 figures your first year, I mean, you can imagine kind of where that will lead you. The base and the commission package both increase over time within the role as you see success. So our top performers are making life-changing money early in their career, and that's I think one of the reasons that Paycom sets the bar so high is that we bring people in at such a high level. The expectations are high. Like you mentioned, the turnover we have is lower than a lot of our competitors because we have such a tedious interview process. And as I mentioned, we look for the right person to begin with. We're not trying to put a lot of people into the job and hope they work out. We have a very intentional and dedicated process that sets people up for success while giving them the expectations and the transparency of what is going to be expected of them. So absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. Well, moving into the sales internship, and this is a position that I'm very passionate about. I've been recruiting for it since I started, and a little over 4 years ago, when I first started, the internship was merely a nutshell of what it is today. I mean, it was just kind of getting off the ground. We had miscellaneous, interns, before that before I came on, that had done our program. But what it is today is a much more streamlined and professional version of what it was. So it is a paid internship. Historically, we've offered it fall, spring, and summer. Our summer program is going to be more of a traditional full-time position during the summer. Our fall and spring programs are part-time. It is a paid position. But the goal here is to not only just put somebody in the role that we want, sitting in a seat, making calls, doing administrative work. This is a developmental role that the goal is to bring somebody in that we see at Paycom long term. So not only filling that seat for the time that they're there, but ultimately joining Paycom in a full-time capacity after they graduate. So it's very hands-on. It's very business professional. You're working alongside our regional learning executive team. They're there to give you the training that you need, whether that's prospecting tips, product knowledge, how to schedule, meetings, whatever it may be. Our trainers are there to kind of help our junior executives see success, from afar. You also have mentorship from one of the current executives on the team. So one of our executive sales reps, who is, potentially on the verge of management, will have an opportunity to mentor a young junior executive into becoming a future rep. And that's one of the bigger components, I think, that we see a lot of value created, because they're not sitting on the sidelines. I mean, they're out in the field with the rep or the manager and seeing how Paycom brings such consultative value to the companies that we're working with. So it's really an amazing opportunity. And if when I talk to students, if they're able to do the internship, it is absolutely the best way to get a job at Paycom post-grad. So that's why we're so passionate about it, because it is such a great pipeline for future opportunities. So a couple of years ago, we started our Campus Ambassador program, and that opportunity is after the internship. If they've done well and earned a full-time offer from Paycom, they'll move into more of a Campus Ambassador for Paycom. So they act as kind of a liaison between the school and recruiting. As part of the college recruiting team, there's only so many of us. We can't be at every school that we recruit from every day, every week, or even every month. So we utilize our campus ambassadors to continue to brand Paycom, utilize the network that they have that we don't, and to continue to kind of tell students that may not know about Paycom more about what we're doing. And it's really a good opportunity for students who just came out of the program to really highlight their experience and showcase why Paycom is a great fit, if that's what they're looking for in the sense of sales, internship, or full-time roles. So again, really, just a very unique opportunity when it comes to internships, just because of the level of involvement and experience they will get. So absolutely, and we do offer that position all over the country as well.
Sure. In fact, we had Ryan from, I can't think of his last name right now, from Aurora, a nice young man, and came in and did the training for the sales competition, the original making the appointment competition. So he did a fantastic job. And I do suggest that our students take a look at that video as well, go back to that material and take a look, and they'll learn a little bit more about Paycom. So can we talk about the competition?
Yes, absolutely. As far as the, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. So as far as the competition, really excited for this role play, and it's a great opportunity to progress through a sales deal meeting. While getting into the needs analysis, while presenting and showing the value that we can create, and ultimately closing the deal. So excited to do the role play and meet with some students and see how they react to the challenges that it brings.
Okay, and so can we go through the scenario a little bit as to what it is and what Paycom would have for solutions for this?
Absolutely, yeah. So
Okay.
the role play is centered around a laundry service called Laundry Go, and ultimately you're trying to figure out how we can create value with this company um, through this sales situation. So around figuring out, like, Jordan, who is the owner of the company, and is looking to expand locations and hiring new individuals, and while dealing with turnover, and all while having to manage payroll, timesheets, compliance, so on and so forth. And so as a new sales rep to Paycom, your goal is to figure out in the needs analysis, what Jordan is doing right now. How much time does he spend doing the payroll? How often they're getting paid? Is it just him doing everything? Or working alongside an accountant to help with compliance and taxes. And all these things are relevant to the ultimate goal, which is to show, Jordan, your goal is to sell Jordan on, 4 of our, key human resource management services, including obviously our payroll, our tax management, our applicant tracking, which will help with future recruiting, and the new hire onboarding, which is obviously helping those new individuals start at the company. So those are, some general, characteristics. And I think the value that you can create in your needs analysis as well as your presentation is going to be focused around saving Jordan time, as well as helping him realize just how much time maybe he is spending on this versus what Paycom could really do for his company and his future growth.
Okay, so in this scenario, for instance, Jordan right now, and you'll see this information. In fact, if it's all right, I'll just share the screen just briefly on this. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I will share the screen on this, and just so the students can see it. And so you see me looking off to the side when I'm talking, but that's all right. So you're a new sales rep at Paycom. That hasn't changed. This time you contacted Jordan, the owner, so it's not John and Mary anymore. Jordan is, male or female, it doesn't matter. They have a business that's growing from 10 to 13 locations, and they're looking to hire at least 30 new employees to staff those locations this year. Normal turnover is, I put that in there, as 10% of employees. So if they have 90 employees right now, that means they're going to turn over 9, 10, in the coming year. He uses QuickBooks to manage payroll. So he gets time cards, has timesheets, physical timesheets that he collects, and then has to enter this information to QuickBooks. And then QuickBooks, he sends that information to an accounting firm that he hired, who do the taxes and compliance and cut the checks for him. And then he also uses them for a little bit for recruiting. They send out flyers to people and use word of mouth recruiting. And then Jordan also mentioned that when you talked to him after you had done that initial appointment, you had talked to Jordan, you got a hold of him, you talked to him, and you found out that he with the expansion plans, he knew there would probably come some additional HR headaches. Later on, you'll see in the scenario that the follow-up you had, or you had gotten that information, I'm sorry, from his assistant, Pat, excuse me. After you did a follow-up with Jordan, you did a needs ID call, and you found out that he's spending about 10 hours a pay period doing payroll, and that's once every 2 weeks. He pays his employees every 2 weeks, which is 26 pay periods a year. I'll have to correct that little, forgot that, parentheses. Between QuickBooks and the accounting firm, he's currently being charged about $250 plus $25 an employee monthly. Okay, for them to do his payroll and do the things that they're doing right now. He gathers the time cards from the prior 2 weeks by picking them up at each location between Monday and Wednesday, And then while he finds it important to visit all of his stores and managers, he does recognize that he needs to find other methods as he continues to grow his business, okay, to get that payroll information in. Uh, and then he does the payroll on Thursday. And so if you figure he's spending 10 hours doing payroll, and he does it on Thursday, that's pretty much his whole day. And I'm sure being a business owner, he gets interrupted along the way. So it might be a very long day for him. Okay. His plan for growth includes two or three new locations every year going forward. So he's going to want to continue to grow. And like I say, every other Thursday, he spends his day doing the payroll. He then submits it to the accounting firm so they have all day Friday to complete it and issue those checks and make the deposits to the bank. Now, so what the accounting firm does is they figure out the tax withholdings, all the other withholdings and withdrawals, and then they send the direct deposits out to the employees' bank accounts. And then they also send tax withholding information to the IRS and to Virginia State. He's in the state of Virginia. And then they send him his payroll information, and quarterly they send Jordan his 941 report and state reports so he can file it with the IRS and with the state of Virginia. When asked about filing the quarterly tax reports, he did admit that he had made a substantial error last year, which cost him an additional $5,000 in back interest and fines. So it was very, very costly for him. And he's concerned about something called buddy punching. And hopefully none of you have ever done it, but what buddy punching is when an employee has somebody else punch them in or punch them out to cheat on the times. Maybe they're late coming in, or maybe they just they got to do something and didn't have permission from the boss, and they still need the money, and they say, "Hey, can you punch me in?" And I think on average, does this sound about right, Ryan? That on average, I know it varies by business quite a bit, but buddy punching, probably costs somebody that's using manual time cards and that probably 1 to 3% of their payroll annually. Would that be fair?
Yes, that's fair.
Okay, so uh, he's spending his time right now reviewing resumes and searching for people on Indeed.com and Monster.com and a variety of local job boards looking for employees. Plus, he's been using the accounting firm. And the average time it takes for his assistant, Pat, to process the paperwork while onboarding a new employee is roughly 2 hours per person. That's handling all the paperwork and sending it where it needs to be, the W-9s and the W-2s and all the information that they have to gather to do it. So some of these things that Paycom has to address some of these issues, Tim, if you can kind of fill in for us with, so what are some of the things that Paycom would have for services that would address some of these specific issues that we brought up?
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure I wasn't on mute. Sorry about that. So as far as the solutions that we can provide, obviously, with Paycom Pay, just to kind of start there, ultimately, you're talking about being able to, clock time and in a multiple different ways. But ultimately, with Paycom's Pay, it is a cloud-based service. So, we utilize an app, for a lot of the, employees being able to kind of clock in and clock out. And it also has a geolocation type of component that, shows like where the person is. So they're obviously going to prevent that buddy punching by, you can look and see like, oh, this person clocked in, a little bit early this morning, but it looks like they just got to work early versus like, oh, they clocked in early, but they were still from home. So that's a component, obviously. And then, as far as our payroll tax management, solution that can take the place of an accountant, who, Jordan is paying, on the side to help with those components. So, one of the biggest components that Paycom really sells people on is that it is a single database system that encompasses everything within, HR. So instead of having to, work with this company for payroll, work with that person for an accountant for taxes, and utilize, a CRM and a random applicant tracking system, you can utilize all those services within Paycom's, app and our database to, achieve your long-term goals. So I think for Jordan here, the selling point is that, you can continue to do what you're doing and spending that time on all those different components while paying somebody to manage your taxes, or you can just utilize Paycom and pay us and, save some money as well as time in the long run. So does that answer your question? Dan, I hope that went
Yeah,
in
yeah.
depth
Would
enough
that
for you.
would also be fair to say too that, I mean, so his time doing payroll would go down to almost nothing, right? I mean,
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and that's the true benefit is that, isn't there something better that Jordan could be doing with those 10 hours? And I'm sure as a growing entrepreneur, he can see the value in that.
okay. And then as far as finding people and helping with the onboarding and that, can you explain a little bit about specifically how uh, Paycom does that for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, with our applicant tracking system, it's not a way to recruit individuals. It's a way for the companies to recruit the right people. So it's more about finding the right individuals to begin with, rather than casting a wide net and maybe spending time interviewing people that may not even be qualified to begin with. So with our applicant tracking system, it's a way for Jordan, his company, to get his applications out there, his job search out there in whatever form or fashion he can, job boards or, word of mouth or flyers, so on and so forth. But when people are applying, he can adjust it to where he has certain expectations, certain requirements that he's looking for. So as far as that component goes, he's interviewing better qualified individuals versus people that may not be qualified even to begin with. So
So
again,
it's
back to kind of saving time.
okay. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So it screens the candidate for him by screening the resumes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, more or less, yes. I mean, ultimately, knockout questions. As far as like the screening component goes, say 5 people apply, and Jordan's at home that night, relaxing. He can look at those applications and he can set it to where certain applications get knocked out of the process initially because they didn't maybe meet a qualification that he is wanting in an employee. So yes, in a way, it is screening it for him.
Okay, and when these job boards, you mentioned to me earlier too that he can put a link directly to Paycom on the job
Mm-hmm.
boards, so it'll help with that too. So it'll save him some time, but mostly getting the right people
Right.
is the key. And anybody who's hired anyone like you and I have know that the right people.
Right.
If you don't have the
Right.
right person, it doesn't matter how much training you do. So anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and then of course he has his assistant Pat, who's processing paperwork for every new employee. So there's some annual turnover there, but there's also the expansion issue that they have to look at. So one other thing I'm going to just track down on here for you as well. There's several links for different articles and information regarding Paycom that you can look at. There's also a pricing worksheet that I've put out here for you. I should say we did that. Paycom did. Thank you. And this shows you the pricing that we have. And please don't go telling people that this is what Paycom charges per month, because this is only for, this is fictional. This is this is only for our
Yeah,
competition
fictional data.
Yes. Okay, but Paycom, to calculate the payrolls, is $5 per employee per pay period. Okay, and in this case, we have them paying twice a week. So and there's 52 weeks a year, so that's 26 pay periods a year. So you'll be able to take your employee count and figure out the cost. Applicant tracking is $20 for each applicant. So that's each applicant that comes in. And you might want to figure, that maybe, I don't know, that out of every hire, what would be a percentage that they would be tracking the applicants versus the ones they actually hired? Is it with
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question for me,
Okay,
Dan? I'm
so
sorry, I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly.
if they're
Yeah.
tracking each applicant, I mean, is that every applicant that they hire, or is it all the applicants that they're tracking? So once he chooses,
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably people that he wants to probably move forward.
okay, all right. So yeah, so he does the initial screening, and maybe are the ones he's going to move forward with, he's going to hire, figure half of them just for giggles. We'll do that.
Mhm.
Okay. And then payroll tax management, uh, as you know, if you anybody who's gotten a paycheck. I remember when my son said, "Hey, Dad, who's this FICA?" You have to, and I just said, "Talk to Grandpa about it." But it's you have state and federal government withholdings for tax. Some communities have income taxes beyond states, and not every state has income tax. So it's different for every locality and government area. That money has to be withheld and it has to be sent in to the government body, and then ultimately every quarter you have to settle up. And when you settle up, you pay your any balance, and you have to report it properly. And if you don't, that's where you can get fined very easily, get fined and have to pay penalties. And I was telling Ryan about, I had a case where it was less than $100, and they threatened to put liens on my house and take away my firstborn and everything else. So and it was just a transposition of two numbers. So. Uh,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So anyway, and then onboarding to handle all the paperwork, and that includes all the insurance and everything else that has to be filled out. That's $50 per new hire. So you can total that up and say, okay, what would they charge where they're at right now? And then you can total up and say, and what's it going to cost them in the coming year, based on if he goes through with hiring these people and based on the estimates that he's given you. So in the end, this is a table for you to use. And then there is a contract. You're going to try to close on, I'm sorry, let me change this here. You're going to try to close on a contract with Paycom. Now, obviously, they can't sign it in front of you, but you could possibly put this on the screen, share it, and say something like, here's the numbers, here's what it looks like, here's our rate, here's what the total would be for the year. You can put it in line for that. And plus Laundry Go can terminate the contract at any time. There's no fees for terminating, right? My understanding. And then say, I will, because this is virtual, I'll send the, get agreement for them to do the contract, and say I'll send it to you, and as soon as I get it back, we'll get started implementing it. And my question is how long could you reasonably say it would take to implement a new system, to put in this?
Yeah, I mean, with every company, it's yeah. I mean, every company's different and everything. With this type of company, I'm not 100% sure really how long it would take. I mean, we could say a couple of days or like half of the day or
Yeah, okay,
I mean,
let's say,
whatever. It's not something I'm honestly super familiar with, and just because like
okay.
it is different with every company,
Sure.
it's hard for me to say. And
Well, let's just say we
Dan,
can
you and
get
I
it
can
done.
kind of
Yeah, let's say we can get it done within, within a day or two. You know,
okay.
give it,
That sounds good. Yeah.
if we get all the information, and so, we can likely get it done for him by his or her next payroll. Okay,
Great.
so, all
Mhm.
right, I'm going to stop sharing this. Um, so there's other information that's out there for you as well that we're posting. Like I say, a lot of background information on Paycom. Ryan, what else would you like to add? Or Kenyatta, do you have any comments that you'd like to add for the students?
No, I think everything that you went over sounds good. The students just need to make sure that they refresh their memory from the round one
Yes.
information. I think is really important, just because it's been a couple of weeks, and I think that'll help add value and make a stronger presentation if they do that.
That's great. Okay, Ryan, in summary, what else would you like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just, again, thanks for having me, Dan. I appreciate this. Excited about this role play next week. I think for students, just to kind of, give them an idea on a 10-minute role play. You don't have a lot of time, when it comes down to it. So I would recommend students, being intentional with the 10 minutes they have. So, not to say, you don't want to build any kind of rapport or continue to build that rapport from the first meeting, but you definitely do want to make sure that you're conscious of your time, because it will go quick, and 10 minutes is quick. So
Yes.
outside of that, I mean, I think that's it. I'm excited for the opportunity, and my team that'll be on with me that day are excited as well. So yeah, I think that's all I have, Dan.
Okay, great. Well, and I'm just going to add to piggyback on what you said, and I should have mentioned it. Yeah, it is very short, but be prepared to do a small presentation about, this whole thing is about the presentation. So verify the information that you learned. There might be a slight change, there might not, but you always want to verify it. And I would have, do a small presentation on what Paycom can do, and specifically how it can help him based on the things that you uncovered. The things that he's concerned about and the things that you uncovered. Get that verification, get those trial closes along the way, get that buy-in, and then of course, this is the close. So you're going to be handling objections and trying to close on the contract. If you can't get the contract closed, at least try to close to the next step. Okay, so that's very important in sales, that you always take it to the next step. So Ryan and Kenyatta, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it. And especially thank you to Paycom for partnering with us and sponsoring this competition. It is very much appreciated. It's allowed so many of our students to do so many things and have these kind of programs, which is really rich experience for them. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. And students, thank you. And we'll see you on Wednesday.
Thank you.
And I need to